I've always supported culture clash individually and collectively throughout the years. Their statement of socio-political Latino American experience. I've always been to a lot of their own pieces. I think there's great talent in not only Richard Montoya, but Herbert Sigüenza and Rick Salinas. Their voices have been quite powerful, impacting, throughout the 90s here in Los Angeles. So I went to see Water and Power in 2006 at the Mark Taper Forum and remember that I was fully impacted by the power and the relevancy of the piece. I recall coming across Richard at another event and we started talking about Water and Power and talked about its potentiality as a screenplay. So I don't hear from him for a few months to a year. He calls me. He says, I have a screenplay. Do you want to read it? I said, absolutely. I read it, and I totally got what he was trying to do in terms of opening it up, in terms of the landscape of the story in one night in Los Angeles. And we spoke on it, and then he asked me if I was interested in playing his Siler. And I said yes. Working with Richard as a first-time director was a really pleasant experience. He was very passionate, very articulate, very clear about his vision. I have to talk about Richard, the writer, the wordsmith, the communicator. Richard has been a performance artist that has been able to communicate a vision. The way he uses language is so beautiful because it's a real testament to his love of Los Angeles, specific characters he writes about. He never dumbs down his characters as a writer. So therefore, as a director, it's like icing on the cake because he's getting the visuals together. He's making love to the city. He's already made love to the tale through his words and through the twists and turns and the Chicanoisms. It's so specific to Los Angeles, and the centerpiece, it being the battle or the question that we're dealing with as Latino Americans here in the United States, is the centerpiece of this story. So I was excited to work with Richard Montoya, very much, and it was beautiful to watch him as a director, also trust his DP and his editor, and he was having his own learning curve. And he was very clear with his vision, but would stay very open to what was happening in front of him. Yes, I portray the character of Sergeant Siler, which is a Latina woman and a uniformed cop in a fictitious division in Los Angeles, not unlike those divisions that are found in the rougher parts of town, and divisions that have sometimes made the news, because sometimes their practices can shift a little left of the law, a little right of it, So no one wears a black hat. It's a real provocative look and exploration about law enforcement. So I portray a Latina woman in a man's world as a uniformed cop. And like Power, I think Sergeant Siler has experienced her own stopgaps, her own glass ceiling. So my personal exploration is those women in law enforcement and how they deal in this man's world, but yet need to be trusted on the ride-alongs, need to be trusted by their brethren. I have known Lupe Ontiveros for many years socially. We've come across each other. Our careers have had different trajectories, and I was lucky enough to find myself on a set with her, the set of Water and Power together. The scene we were both involved in was a very large set piece. It was 16, 20 uniformed cops, homicide cops, in an 8x10 room. In the middle of that room was Robert Beltran, and then a Steadicam making circles. So it was really tight quarters to really work in. But the experience that I had with Lupe was a pleasant one, was a beautiful one, because I've always known she's been about the work. And in between takes, it was always gelling a little bit more what's happening in the scene. There would be discussions between Robert and Lupe and I about the scene in and of itself. And so I really respect that in her. She's made her mark here in Los Angeles as a Latina actress, and she had she's my progenitor in a sense, you know. She made some inroads for Latin women, and I was happy to have shared some time with her on a set. I wouldn't go as far as saying protagonist. It's more of a female presence, because Richard Montoya, in the piece originally in the Mark Taper form, had no females. It was an all-male, kind of claustrophobic run of two brothers in a hotel room, and then all the action happened off stage, and there was information that was brought to the room. So in opening up the story and making it into a screenplay, I think Richard wanted to honor female presence, whether it be the assistant to Water or whether it be a female law enforcement person. I think he wanted to honor that. Now, how did it feel to be a part of this story? I feel wonderful to be a part of this kind of story because of its relevancy and the themes that it touches upon. It touches upon many themes. It's hard to even man versus himself, man versus society. Water and Power, these two brothers are sons of a ditch digger. On the shoulders of this ditch digger spirit stands these two brothers. One is a conceptualizer, a visionary. The other one is Power, a cop, a doer. One is more a little bit idealistic and democratic, and Power, because of his hands-on in the streets and in society, kind of through the job has learned about the stopgaps. And the biggest learning curve, I think, that happened in this story is Water. Discovering that the glad handshaking and the fruition of your dreams, sometimes working within a system, you might come across 1%ers that are greedy, capricious, power hungry, and you think you're a player because you're trying to do for all, and you hit that ceiling. So I think he hit that ceiling for love of his other brother. In that sense, I think being part of this story is very relevant to the ongoing question in battle. I don't call it battle, but it's a thematic battle between how do you make a city run when there's so many cultures and so many things, and there are dreamers and conceptualizers from all cultures and people that want to make things happen in this city. It's important in the making of it. You have a very talented all-Latino ensemble cast that has broken through any kind of Hollywood stereotype because it is written by a wordsmith and someone who absolutely understands the Chicano experience here in Los Angeles. So specific that it's become universal, you know, in terms of its themes. So I think it's an important film to see because of that. You see no one wears a black hat. There is just situations. There's intelligence behind every character, from the gangbanger in the wheelchair to the senator who's trying to make something happen. Well, I hope the audience can see the themes that Richard Montoya has tried to talk about: family love, brethren. One needs the other. One level of society needs another level of society to thrive. Water needs power. That there is a synergy within Los Angeles, and there's a balance that needs to be struck up, if you will, for it to all work. I think that's a larger message. The other message is that Richard Montoya is one hell of a writer. He's got a lot of stories to tell about Los Angeles. And I hope he finds the opportunity to do more stories. What Martin Scorsese and Sidney Lumet was to New York, I think Richard Montoya is to Los Angeles, because he really honors and loves this city, not just a few, but the city. And I think he has an important voice. And we need more Latino American directors and writers, to be able to tell their stories and make their films and entertain our Latino American experience. We need to see that more up on screen.